It was supposed to be a candid shot, just a casual photo snapped at my sister's engagement party. The kind people post with filters and hollow captions. But in the background, blurred yet unmistakable, stood my fiancé, his arm around her waist, his face tilted toward hers with a closeness no brother-in-law should share. And there, on her finger, gleaming like a trophy, was the ring that had once lived on my hand. The ring I had removed only days earlier during a brief break he said we needed to grow. That photo didn't just show betrayal, it framed it in perfect lighting. I didn't confront either of them, not yet. Instead, I smiled, and silence became my weapon. I began to wear that smile like armor, calm, unreadable, impenetrable. At brunches and family dinners, when they laughed too loudly across the table or shared private glances they thought no one noticed, I just smiled. I asked about wedding colors, complimented her dress, asked if he'd been sleeping well. I watched her beam, unaware she was posing for a revenge story she didn't know had begun. My voice stayed light, my eyes curious, but my mind calculating. That smile wasn't peace, it was the storm waiting to rise. Their secrets were thin walls, and I lived next to them with my ear to every crack. When she touched his shoulder a second too long, I saw it. When he stared too hard at her when she wasn't looking, I caught it, but I said nothing. Instead, I watched them think they were clever, watched them perform their deception like a private show I had front row seats to. And behind every nod and chuckle, I built my quiet war. I started keeping notes. Nothing dramatic, just fragments. A look here, a comment there. Whispers became patterns, and patterns became evidence. Her calendar posts didn't match his busy work weekends. Her tagged photos at the vineyard aligned perfectly with his excuses for missing my calls. And the late-night texts, oh, those fragile digital crumbs. She had posted a story from a rooftop bar. He claimed he was at home asleep, but there was his watch, reflected in the wine glass in her boomerang. They weren't just sloppy, they were arrogant. And arrogance is predictable. I didn't need to dig far. Their love was careless, and carelessness always leaves footprints. I stopped searching for proof the day I realized I was the proof. So I played the game, the perfect ex, the understanding sister. I joined group chats and suggested cake flavors for their wedding. I pretended to forget anniversaries, gave her my old heels, even helped her draft her bridal shower guest list. She whispered secrets to me, not realizing I was memorizing every syllable. He joked with me like old times, not sensing the shift. Beneath my laughter, I became invisible by choice because the invisible girl hears everything. And revenge, I knew, is best served when no one sees your hands. She liked to win. She liked to strut in red lipstick and think people admired her for her beauty, not the mess she made behind closed doors. She whispered in my ear how I deserved better than him, how he never really loved me. She thought I was too broken to piece the puzzle together. But every cruel word became a brick in the fortress I was building around myself. Her lipstick-marked cups, his voice-filled voicemails meant for me but echoed with guilt. They were performers playing roles in my story now. And I let them. He once said, "No one knows me like you do." He had no idea how true that was. I knew his lies before he told them. I remembered the way his voice faltered when he was nervous. I knew how he avoided eye contact when he was guilty. I knew the rhythm of his routines, the structure of his excuses. He forgot I had studied him, like scripture, and now I used that memory like a scalpel, clean, sharp, surgical. I didn't need to guess what he'd do next. I knew, because I built the man he became, and I would now unmake him. I invited them both to a party, an engagement celebration. I called it, for them, a night of champagne and curated playlists and perfect lighting. Friends from both sides, family, a photographer. I made sure every seat had a name. I smiled when she hugged me, and I laughed when he toasted her. And when I gave my speech sweet, heartfelt, seemingly supportive, I made sure to set the stage. The moment I ended with, "To the happy couple, may all your truths come to light," I saw the flicker in his eyes. She didn't catch it, but he did. Later that night, I asked to speak with them privately. I apologized, told them I overreacted when we broke up, that I wanted peace, that I forgave them. She teared up. He looked relieved, and as they leaned in to thank me, I reached into my purse and placed my phone gently on the table screen down. Recording, they laughed, confessed, relished their own cruelty. He said, "She was never gonna keep me." She said, "She's too fragile to fight back." I nodded, blinked, and let them finish. And when I left the room, I let the phone stay behind just long enough. She wore the ring to flaunt at my ring, her victory. She paraded it that night like a crown, showing guests how perfectly it fit her finger. And as the night ended, I approached her in front of everyone. I reached into my clutch, pulled out the identical ring box she had once thrown away, and opened it. Inside was the same ring, mine, the one he said he had lost. I held it up, then gently slid it into her wine glass. "You always wanted what was mine," I whispered. "Now it's all yours, every lie included." Silence fell like snow. Whispers spread like wildfire. Faces turned. Guests watched in stunned silence as I played the audio over the speaker. Their laughter, their cruelty, their confession. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I stood still, watching their faces drain of color. The trap had closed. Every glance they shared was now stained with guilt. Every smile seen as a smirk. The house they built from lies collapsed in a single breath. And I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply walked away, leaving behind the ruins they built for themselves. In the days that followed, they tried to reach me. Messages filled with apologies, explanations, half-hearted pleas. I didn't respond, not because I wanted them to suffer, but because I had already closed that chapter. My peace didn't need noise. I didn't need revenge that screamed. I needed distance, and I had it. They lost friends. They lost respect. But I found something far more valuable: clarity, a life unchained, a path unshared. And as I stepped into the silence they once filled, I realized something. Peace isn't always quiet, but it is always mine. Liam introduced himself with a smile that disarmed everyone in the room. He had that quiet confidence, the kind that didn't need to be loud to take up space. My friends liked him immediately. My parents said he seemed solid, like someone you could count on. But charm has a way of softening sharp edges, and I didn't see the blade hidden underneath. Then there was Maya, my younger sister by 3 years, louder than me in every way. Where I measured my words, she spilled hers like champagne. She could light up a room with her laughter, but she never noticed when she was setting someone else's world on fire. And Liam? Liam noticed her more than he ever should have. Still, I didn't flinch. Not yet. I was raised to believe in trust, and at that time, I still did. Maya never understood boundaries. She borrowed my sweaters, my lipstick, my stories, and smiled like they'd always belonged to her. Growing up, it was harmless, annoying, but forgivable. But as we got older, she started borrowing things that didn't return so easily. Friends, attention, praise. I remember the first time I saw Liam looking at her a second too long. She had on my dress. She giggled and twirled, and he laughed in a way that felt new warm, but not for me. I told myself I was imagining things, that sisters get jealous, and I should be better than that. But I'd already begun keeping score, even if I didn't admit it yet. There were moments I now replay like warning bells. The way Liam would joke, "If I'd met your sister first, who knows?" followed by a laugh too quick. The way Maya would pout and say, "You always take her side," like it was a game. I smiled through it then. That's what we're taught, right? To not be insecure, to trust love, to believe that what's yours is safe. I excused the glances. I overlooked the whispered comments. But every "just kidding" had weight, and every "don't be paranoid" was a quiet dismissal of my instinct. My silence wasn't naivety, it was strategy in disguise. The day I asked Liam if something was going on between them, he laughed. Not the kind that relieves tension, the kind that adds gasoline to it. "You're overthinking again," he said, brushing past my words like lint. "Maya?" She didn't deny it. She smiled, tilted her head, and asked, "Are you jealous of me?" That smirk, it lodged itself deep in my spine. I could have screamed, I could have fought, but instead I nodded, slowly, walked away, and marked that moment in memory. You don't need to explode when something's broken. Sometimes, you just need to wait until it cuts the right person. It was a photo from a friend's engagement dinner. A selfie meant to show off my new necklace. But behind me, reflected in the window glass, was a private truth. Liam's hand, resting lightly on Maya's hip, her head leaning back against his shoulder. They thought they were out of frame. They thought love's betrayal didn't leave fingerprints. But it does. I stared at the photo for a long time before saving it. In a hidden album titled simply Truth. That night, I didn't cry. I just stopped believing that confrontation was justice. I started believing in exposure. The lies were quiet at first. Maya stopped posting stories on girls' nights. No location tags. No check-ins. "I forgot," she'd say. We were just catching up. But Maya never forgot to be seen unless there was something worth hiding. Liam started pulling back too. Excuses for skipped dinners, texts that didn't match his calendar, missed calls returned at odd hours. When I asked how her night went, her answers felt polished, practiced, too perfect, too aligned, like they'd rehearsed them. I wasn't looking for rage, I was looking for rhythm. And slowly, it began to surface. They weren't clever, just careless. The cracks appeared in small ways. Maya saying Liam loved white wine when he hated it. Liam mentioning a show he never watched with me, but somehow knew the plot of. They slipped, not because they were bold, but because they thought I was blind. But I was watching everything. The overlaps in their timelines, the words they both started using, they were sinking unintentionally, like people who'd spent too much time in each other's orbit. They didn't realize I was mapping them, drawing lines from lie to lie until the picture was complete. Still, I said nothing. I cooked. I planned our wedding. I helped Maya choose a dress for a date. I pretended not to notice. I attended every family gathering with a smile that cost me nothing. In that stillness, I gathered screenshots, receipts, locations. I saved voice notes and call logs. I watched the dance they thought they had choreographed in secret, and in silence, I created my own steps. Not for confrontation, not for public drama, but for precision. I didn't want them bruised. I wanted them undone. My grief didn't look like grief. It looked like lipstick and high heels and a fiancé who seemed more radiant than ever. I laughed louder, complimented Maya more often. I played the role so well they almost believed I'd moved on from suspicion. I wasn't hiding pain, I was hiding patience. They say grief comes in stages, but mine came with purpose. I wore it like armor. Every dinner, every toast, every moment I shared with them was another page in the story I was writing. They thought I was healing. I was preparing. I stopped asking questions. I stopped giving chances to come clean. My silence became louder than any confrontation could have been. Liam noticed first. He started checking in more often, asking if I was okay. Maya became defensive, asking why I was acting weird. I just smiled, told them I loved them both, that I was lucky to have such strong people in my life. They leaned into the lie, thinking my quiet meant forgiveness. But I wasn't forgiving. I was finishing, because if they thought I'd break quietly, they were about to learn just how loud silence can be. I didn't scream when I found the proof. I didn't confront, accuse, or give them the satisfaction of my pain. Instead, I opened a folder on my laptop and named the recipes. Inside, I began collecting the truth. Screenshots of deleted chats I recovered from the cloud. Voice notes Maya had carelessly sent to someone else, not realizing I'd shared that backup device with her once. GPS timestamps, photo metadata, overlapping calendar entries all stitched into one quiet weapon. They thought their secrets had vanished, buried in unsent messages and erased call logs. But technology remembers everything. And now, so did I. It wasn't even the evidence that hurt the most. It was the memory. A dress navy blue, lace sleeves, my favorite. I'd worn it on my first anniversary with Liam. Maya had borrowed it for a work event weeks later. I didn't question it then. I never thought to, but now, there it was. Again in a photo I wasn't meant to see. Same dress, same smile. Only this time, she wasn't beside a stranger. She was wrapped around Liam like something out of a twisted déjà vu. And I saw it differently now. Not borrowed, stolen, draped over betrayal. I tested him, gently at first. You seemed distant yesterday, I said. Is something bothering you? His eyes softened, but not out of love, out of calculation. You're imagining things, he replied, brushing hair from my face. That's what he always did, just enough comfort to hush doubt, but never enough to satisfy truth. His words were sugar-laced lies, his affection a distraction. Every time I reached for answers, he handed me denial wrapped in charm. But I stopped seeking clarity from his lips. I started trusting what I already knew. So I played the fool. I asked questions I already had answers to. I pretended to forget what I'd seen, laughed when Maya shared her single girl adventures. I nodded when Liam told stories that didn't line up with his past messages. I smiled when I wanted to scream. They believed my silence was submission, that I was naive. But I was thinking 3 steps ahead, like a chess player watching amateurs brag about their opening moves, unaware they'd already lost the match. I told them I was going to visit my parents that weekend, claimed I needed some quiet time to rest. Liam kissed me goodbye. Maya texted me a heart emoji. That night, I stayed in a hotel near our apartment. I watched through the restaurant's back window as they entered separately, glancing over their shoulders. They thought they were being careful, slipping into a booth in the darkest corner, but secrets that flourish in the dark still leave footprints. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just watched and recorded. The night they thought I left became the night I knew for sure. That same night, I returned home before he did, slipped into bed, pretended to be asleep. When he came in, he kissed my forehead like nothing was broken. I lay still, counting the seconds between his breaths. He curled beside me, one arm draped across my waist, the same arm that had held her. I memorized that rhythm, the weight of his lies, the ease of his deception. I wondered how many nights he'd come back to me, heart still echoing someone else's name. But I didn't move. I just listened. The engagement party had always been Maya's idea. Big but intimate, she said. Something tasteful, I agreed. And then I took over the planning. I chose the venue, the lighting, the date. I ordered the caterer and the music and the floral arrangements. I made it look like a celebration, but it was a stage, a carefully planted trap. I didn't want vengeance served in anger. I wanted it dressed in silk and champagne. If they were going to betray me like a performance, then I would give them an audience. The guest list was a masterpiece. Friends, family, colleagues who'd whispered concerns before but never voiced them aloud. People who loved drama just enough to stay quiet while watching it unfold. Everyone received elegant, gold-foiled invitations. I added Maya's friends, especially the ones she thought were loyal but couldn't keep secrets. I included Liam's old co-workers, the ones he'd once joked about never seeing again after the wedding. I gave them seats, gave them wine, gave them a front-row seat to the truth they'd all ignored. The party wasn't for celebration, it was for revelation. As I practiced my toast the night before, I imagined their faces. Maya glowing, Liam smug, both of them believing they'd won. I pictured them smiling through their lies, surrounded by people who didn't yet know they were props in a story neither of them controlled. I rehearsed my words until they felt effortless. I timed every pause, every smile, every shift in tone. And when I looked into the mirror afterward, I didn't see a woman heartbroken. I saw a woman ready, not for revenge but for release. The party shimmered with false perfection. Roses in crystal vases, a string quartet humming in the background, glasses filled, laughter rising. And there they were, Liam and Maya, dressed like royalty, the stars of the evening. They didn't know they were the centerpiece of their own undoing. Everything around them glittered, but the truth glowed brighter. It lived in the speeches, the slideshow, the strategically placed photos, in the envelope under every seat, in the silence before my toast. They thought they were in control, but every detail whispered otherwise. And when the music faded and all eyes turned to me, I raised my glass not in love, but in farewell. It happened in a blink. Her phone lit up on the table, and my eyes caught more than I was meant to see. A brunch invitation, just the three of us. Maya laughed at something the waiter said, reaching for her mimosa, leaving her screen unlocked. One careless swipe, and there it was, a photo of Liam, smiling, not the one I took, but the one she did his. Tie loosened, his hand low on her waist, time stomped on a night he'd claimed he was with his brother. My breath didn't catch, my hands didn't tremble. Instead, I took a bite of my croissant and looked at the screen again. Dates, locations, the message. Last night was perfect. Wish I didn't have to sneak out. She turned back, picked up her phone, none the wiser. But in that instant, the clock started ticking on their borrowed time. Weeks later, he handed me a gift, small, square, wrapped with meticulous care. Just because, he said. Inside was a bracelet, silver, delicate, with a charm that looked oddly familiar. I thanked him, kissed his cheek, wore it to dinner, but something about the design scratched at the back of my mind. That night, I found it. A photo on Maya's feed from months ago, one I had barely noticed before, her wrist resting on a table, a nearly identical bracelet glinting under the light. It wasn't the gift that hurt. It was his face when I opened it, the performance of joy, of thoughtfulness, all for show. He didn't realize he'd recycled romance, wrapped a lie in ribbon, and handed it to the wrong woman. I started organizing everything. Each piece of the puzzle, from Maya's text at brunch to the bracelet, to the receipts tucked in his coat pocket, and then it all locked into place. A message from Liam at 9:14 p.m. Heading home now, love you. A selfie from Maya's story at 9:16. In a hotel bar, his watch unmistakable on her table. GPS data backed it. The hotel lobby timestamp. My credit card alerts showing he never left town like he claimed. I wasn't angry. I was surgical. Cold clarity took over, and I stitched the truth into a clean, undeniable timeline. There was no room left for doubt, only design. So I made the party a production, our engagement celebration a perfect excuse. I adjusted the seating chart, shifted guests closer to where the cameras would capture everything. I installed discreet lenses in floral arrangements, ensured each one had the perfect line of sight. I even tested the mic placement beneath the welcome arch. The stage was set, and I didn't need to act. All I had to do was watch. As they rehearsed their lie, I poured champagne. I smiled, hugged relatives, laughed with coworkers. Meanwhile, the investigator I'd hired sent updates straight to my phone. Photos of Liam's car outside Maya's apartment 2 nights ago. Surveillance clips of them kissing in parking lots, leaving hotels, entering restaurants as if no one would ever piece it together. And they were right, no one else had. Until me. Between every sip of champagne and every fake compliment, I checked another message, added another pin to the board. I wasn't documenting heartbreak. I was sharpening it into strategy. Everyone showed up, dressed to impress, smiling, toasting to what they thought was love. My family beamed with pride. His friends joked about bachelor parties and future babies. Maya flitted through the crowd like a second bride, hugging guests too tightly, laughing too loudly. They thought it was about them, our future, our romance. But I was rewriting that future in real time. Not for revenge alone, for revelation. I didn't want their downfall hidden. I wanted it remembered. They played their roles well. She posed beside me, her arm around my waist. He whispered, "I love you," in my ear like it meant anything now. They clinked glasses with my parents, grinned at the photographer, danced under lights I had installed just to illuminate their lies. Every time Maya caught Liam's eye, she smiled like she knew a secret. And maybe she did, but she had no idea that I knew it too. Every second of perfection they performed added weight to the fall I had planned, and I let them think they were winning. Maya raised her glass just as I signaled for the projector. Her toast began with a joke, something about how long we'd all known each other. Her voice echoed through the room, light and practiced. And then, the screen behind her flickered to life. The first image appeared, Liam's hand on her thigh, time-stamped, location marked. She faltered. The guests laughed, thinking it was part of a surprise. Then came the next photo, a clip, a message. The room turned silent. Her hand trembled, the glass slipping slightly. Liam turned, his face draining of color as he met my eyes across the room. I held my glass steady, raised it slightly, and smiled just enough to let them know it was never really their secret. It was always my plan. A calm voice cut through the murmurs before anyone even noticed who was speaking. It was my voice, steady, clear, and deliberate, telling the story they never wanted heard aloud. Every word outlined their betrayal without bitterness, only a cold, elegant certainty. I spoke with quiet authority, each sentence weaving the truth they had tried so desperately to bury. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging heavier than any shouted accusation could. I wasn't there to shout or plead. I was there to reclaim what was mine with precision and grace. The screen flickered to life, and the evidence began its relentless confession. Clip by clip, lie by lie, their carefully constructed facade unraveled before the crowd. Footsteps in hotel corridors, whispered conversations, the touch of hands that shouldn't have met. The footage spared nothing, leaving no room for doubt or denial. Faces froze as the truth streamed across the projector, silent but devastating. The only sounds were gasps and the occasional shifting of uneasy guests, as their world cracked and splintered in front of their eyes. A wine glass shattered on the floor, the sharp clink echoing through the stunned silence. Someone whispered my name, barely audible but filled with disbelief. Maya's breath hitched, her confident smile dissolving into panic. The air seemed to thicken, suffocating the lies that had once seemed so safe. Every witness felt the shift, the moment when illusion crumbled and the raw reality stood exposed. Their carefully rehearsed act faltered, replaced by the stark terror of inevitable truth. Liam's desperation flared to late. He lunged toward the projector, fingers fumbling for cords and connections. But every cable was locked, every device secured beyond his reach. All eyes snapped to him, waiting for the excuse, the denial, the lies he had practiced. Instead, he found himself trapped in the glare of silent accusation. No words came to rescue him, only the heavy stillness of his unraveling empire. His reign ended not with a shout, but with the stunned faces of everyone who had once trusted him. I stepped forward then, calm and unyielding. In that moment, I was everything they had underestimated. Composed, collected, unbroken. The woman they thought would crumble was the one standing strongest, holding the reins of her own fate. I let the silence speak as I took my place at the center, embodying the quiet power of someone who had reclaimed control. No tears, no fury, just the cold, unshakable certainty of justice served. Raising my glass, I addressed the room with a clarity that cut through the remnants of deception. I thought we'd be celebrating love tonight, I said, voice steady and sure, and we are mine for the truth. The words hung in the air, a final toast to honesty, to endings and new beginnings. The crowd watched, some in shock, others in reluctant respect, as I transformed a moment of betrayal into a statement of strength. My toast wasn't for them, it was for myself. Without hesitation, I turned and walked away, each step deliberate and sure. Behind me, chaos unfolded as they scrambled to salvage what remained of their lies. I didn't look back. There was nothing left to see except the ruins of their deceit. They would never forget this exit, not just because it marked the end of a chapter, but because it was the beginning of my true freedom. I moved forward, unburdened and whole. That night, I left the party alone, but I carried with me a victory no one could take away. In heels that clicked like armor and steel resolve that no betrayal could break, I stepped into a new life. one forged not from pain, but from the strength that comes with truth. And in that quiet, unyielding walk forward, I found the closure I had long been waiting for, complete, unshaken, and mine. Liam's reputation unraveled faster than I could have imagined. The whispers started softly, quiet comments over coffee, side glances in meetings, hesitant questions from colleagues who once admired him. But soon, those whispers became a wave. Everyone who had witnessed his downfall or heard the stories, stitched together from the footage, seemed to hold their judgment like a verdict. His name, once spoken with respect, now carried the weight of disgrace. There was no need for me to say a word. The truth was dismantling him piece by piece. Maya, once so sure of her place among family and friends, began to fade like a ghost. The same people who had once welcomed her warmly now kept their distance, their eyes sliding past her as if she no longer existed. She moved through familiar rooms as if invisible, shunned by the very people she'd counted on. The betrayal she had spun like a shield only isolated her further, making her exile painfully clear. It was a silent punishment far harsher than any words could deliver. Those who had chosen silence, the so-called friends and accomplices, found themselves caught in the storm they helped create. The judgment wasn't as loud, but it was no less real. Loyalties fractured under the strain, leaving many grappling with guilt and the consequences of their quiet complicity. Watching their carefully maintained facades crumble reminded me that betrayal always carries a price for everyone involved. I stepped into a new life with cautious hope. The small apartment, the scent of fresh paint, and the blank pages of a business plan felt like a rebirth. No longer tethered to the shadows of their lies, I embraced a horizon bright with freedom. Each step forward was deliberate, a testament to resilience born from ruin. This was my beginning, one built on strength, clarity, and a future reclaimed. Though the past lingered like a faint echo, it no longer haunted me. I carried with me only lessons learned and boundaries firmly set. There was no bitterness in the lines I drew, only the quiet power of someone who refused to be broken again. My world had been reshaped, not by vengeance alone, but by the grace of letting go and standing tall. One afternoon, a letter arrived. Liam's desperate apology lay folded in my hands, its words pleading for forgiveness that would never come. I never opened it. It stayed untouched, a silent reminder of peace achieved not through reconciliation, but through moving beyond the need for closure from those who betrayed me. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words ever could. I never needed to scream. My victory was found in the quiet moments when I chose to walk away. The empty space I left behind was a voice of its own, loud, unmistakable, and final. In that silence, they heard everything, and I found a peace that no betrayal could steal.